Hi there, welcome to our networking video series. In the last video, we configured the default gateway from the switch to the firewall and tested the reachability of PC1 and PC2 to the firewall's IP address. In this video, we'll configure internet connectivity for our network. So, let's get started. Let's start by opening our firewall. I have listed the IP addresses to be configured on our firewall's interfaces, ETH14 and ETH15, which face each ISP. These IP addresses will serve as our public IPs. In real-world scenarios, you will often encounter setups like this. I'll list the IP addresses for each link here. So we're done. Now let's assign the IP addresses to the firewall's interfaces. Now that we've assigned the IP addresses to the interfaces, let's apply the changes by clicking the Commit button. Next, let's configure the IP addresses for the interfaces on each ISP router. Now that we've configured the IP addresses for each interface link, the next step is to configure NAT on the firewall. After that, we'll set up a security policy to specify which subnets are allowed to be NATed and permitted to access the internet. Now that we've configured NAT for the interface ETH14, repeat the same process for ETH15, as we need NAT on that interface as well. Next, let's configure the security policy. Now that we've completed the configuration, including assigning IP addresses on the links between the firewall and the ISP routers, and applying NAT and security policies on the firewall, the next step is to test if PC1 and PC2 can reach the ISP routers and verify that the IP addresses have been NATed. All right, as you can see here, the IP address of PC1 1010.20.10 has been translated to 100.1.2. Also, the PC2 IP address has been translated to 200.11.2. Now, let's move to the last part, where we will configure both ISP routers to provide internet access to our devices. The configuration will include IP address setup, default routes, ACLs, and NAT. After completing these steps, we'll test the internet connectivity using ping and perform a failover test. So let's proceed. Now that NAT key has been set up on ISP1, let's test the connectivity by pinging 8.8.8.8 from the firewall to ensure we can reach it. Great. The ping to 8.8.8 was successful, which means the firewall is now able to reach the internet through ISP1. Now let's move on to configuring the ISP2 router. Now we're done configuring the ISP2 router. Let's test the connectivity to ensure everything is working properly. Let's start by testing PC1. Great. PC1 can successfully ping 8.88.8, confirming it now has internet connectivity. Now let's check which path it takes through our network by using traceroute. As you can see, the traffic flows from PC1 to Core 1, then to the firewall, followed by ISP1, and finally to my router in the LAN. Let's also check PC2 to see if it can ping the internet, and then test the traceroute to verify its network path. PC2 can also successfully ping 8.88.8, confirming it has internet connectivity as well. Now let's verify PC2's traceroute to see the path its traffic takes. As you can see, the traffic flows from PC2 to Core 2, then to the firewall, followed by ISP1, and finally reaches my gateway router. The last thing we need to do is verify our failover testing to ensure high availability in our network. To do this, we'll shut down the ISP1 interface, Gigabit Ethernet 00, while executing a ping from PC1. After shutting down the interface, we should see ping failures or dots in the test. Then, once ISP2 takes over the traffic, the ping should resume. Let's check it out. As expected, the ping resumes after some failures. Now, let's check if ISP2 is the active router by using traceroute. Alright, as you can see, previously the third IP address in the traceroute was 100.1.1.1. Now, after shutting down the interface of ISP1, the third IP address in the traceroute shows ISP2's IP address, indicating that ISP2 is now the active router. We've now finished building the enterprise network setup from scratch. This marks the end of our configuration process. Thank you for following along. I hope this guide has helped you understand the steps involved in setting up an enterprise network. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tutorials. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.